Hello, everybody. My name is Frederic Cardin, and welcome to this interview on Pan Am 360. Today, we're going to talk about a very special event that's coming up next Wednesday, March 13th in Montreal. It's going to be, yeah, really special, I say. It's some kind of, well, let's say a film concert, but not very much. It's it's totally reinvented. It has nothing to do with film concerts that we see all the time here in Montreal or other big cities like Hollywood production with a huge symphony orchestra playing live. That's not it at all. It's something completely different. And well, it's about Afghanistan, first of all. And let's say a psychedelic side of Afghanistan, something you have probably never seen. It's about a movie called Like Eagles, and that's the English title. It's supposedly the first movie that was ever made in Afghanistan in the 1960s. And there's going to be music live with this movie, and the movie itself will be transformed as I think I understood the idea of it, but we're gonna talk about it further with three artists who are responsible for this. Two of them will be on stage next Wednesday. The first I'm welcoming is a man called Sam Shalabi. He's a musician and a multi-instrumentalist, composer, improviser. He's one of the greatest musician coming out of the Montreal independent music scene of the last 30 years. He's recognized the world over for some projects like the Shalabi Effect, Land of Kush, which is a wonderful project, wonderful orchestra, Dwarfs of East Agusa, and many other projects. He's got gazillions of them. The other person with us is Shaista Latif, who is comedian, author, and who is responsible for the dramaturgy and the libretto, the booklet of what we're gonna hear next Wednesday. She is also of Afghan origin. She's Canadian, but of Afghan origin, so there's a link. And also Isak Goldschneider. Last but not least, he's a multi-instrumentalist also. He plays clarinet, among other things. He plays the piano also, but he's also the founder and artistic director of Innovation en Concert, which is one of the partners in the organization of this event with Le Vivier Contemporary Music Hub here in Montreal. So, long introduction, but let's get to business, ladies and gentlemen. And well, let's start with the first question. Like Eagles, what is it exactly, that movie? Why is it important? And what are you gonna do with it next Wednesday exactly?
Okay, I'll try my best to answer that wonderful question. Thank you for that introduction. And also, like all of us will be on stage, including
You'll be
Isak as
also
well.
okay.
All of us will be present and playing on stage. Basically, this is a very special movie in which it kind of functions as a fictional film, and it's also part documentary, in which the city is seen at a particular time in a particular decade and is documented from the farmland into the city. So you kind of get a glimpse of, what Afghanistan looked like back in the day, particularly like the city of Kabul and how it was becoming modernized over time, right? So the film kind of follows the story of this young girl who leaves her small village to go into Kabul and to see the National Day of Celebration. So I just thought it was so fascinating because I've worked with that material for a long period of time, looking at this film and different exhibits and different pieces that I've done in the past. But this is the first time that I had the great luck of being able to collaborate with both Isak and with Sam in order to kind of set a new way of telling this story seeing it in the current day of today, like in my eyes as a member of the diaspora looking at this film, using it as some form to kind of catalyze these monologues and these viewpoints of, what it means to belong to this kind of nation and what nationalism means. So the project is very experimental, in which we're kind of working very dynamically in a collaborative way with the music, having a lot of discussion and discourse around the politics of identity, and also what does it mean to kind of do this work in a province like Quebec as well. Uh, and so, yeah, so it's kind of like looking at the film, seeing parts of it, having some parts of the film experimented with visually alongside these monologues, and this narration partially to the film, and then also with the beautiful music that's going to be moving along the performance.
So let me just get this straight. It's not just about looking at the movie and there's live music with it
Mhm.
from the first second to the last one. Are you modifying a bit of the movie? Or are you cutting some at some places, making cuts, or how does it work really tangibly?
Well, you two can also add to it. So I'll just say very briefly, it's kind of like I'm using, because the film itself is an hour and a half, right? And our performance is under an hour, and we're also working collaborative. So there's certain pieces, there's certain sections of the film that we'll be looking at that will be, kind of repeated or kind of zoned in on to see it. So it's not beginning, middle, and end. It's kind of like checking in at different points with the
Okay.
progression of this film and the journey of this little girl, and then coming back to the monologues, which I'll be performing.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's talk about the music with Sam. The instrumentation is like a chamber orchestra, really. I think you are there, Sam, with the oud and electric guitar. There's Isak on clarinet. There's also string quartet, or a violin and two altos and a cello. So it's a small ensemble, but why this instrumentation, Sam? What what do you want to bring to this project with these instruments in this particular lineup?
Well, I mean, that was kind of a decision with Isak, and well, a decision of all of us actually. But I guess Isak and I kind of um, figured that out together. But essentially, it's really using what we can use to convey the music that we wanted to convey. It was kind of chipping away at ideas that we had of using larger ensemble, a larger ensemble or a smaller ensemble. And once we started writing the music, that it seemed very doable, to kind of to use that instrumentation and that size of a group. I mean, there's a few things that the great thing to say about strings is that they're percussive instruments too. They can act as we can do things with rhythms that are kind of Afghani rhythms, or rhythms that are kind of incorporating that in the pieces. The thing with strings also is, and as same with oud, is that we can do scales that are not Western scales
Mhm.
much easier, with that. The Also a lot of the music that is that that I was exposed to, the Afghani music, the different kinds of Afghani music. It's small ensemble music, a lot of it, which I think Shaista could maybe concur, that a lot of it isn't this giant. In fact, I don't even know, Shaista, is there like an equivalent of the kind of Egyptian, Kulthum, like those giant orchestras that we haven't? Is there an equivalent of that in Afghani music, or is it more?
No, there is. They do have. They also have their national orchestra as
Right.
well. but primarily, like, even just thinking about in terms of the film, like, there is, this little girl goes into the city. She also witnesses a concert, right? And the band is also fairly small as well.
Right.
So, like, it exists in many forms, but primarily we're also trying to match what's in the film and also a little bit what's on stage, if that makes sense.
And
Yeah.
also a
Yeah.
kind of psychedelic recreation as well. It's like it's a because we touch on some of the music from the original music from the film, but we're also taking the soundtrack and using kind of reimagining it in a free improvised situation. I mean, I think that the piece isn't so much about the original film as it is around the society that we're living in. So the film becomes kind of a lens through which we can look at some of the issues around identity and modernity in our society, and also the way that I don't know, I think it opens up some really interesting questions about how we connect to our identities, but also how our identities are used by other people, sometimes in opportunistic ways. And that's something that we can also ask around about the original film,
Yeah.
because the film is really it's kind of um it invokes a kind of dream of modernity that existed of modernism that existed in Afghanistan in the 1960s, and things really turned out very, very differently. And I think maybe we could say that about our culture too.
Was there an original soundtrack for this movie? Did you get inspired by it or not at all? What is
Yeah. Well,
a
yeah.
bit?
I mean, as Isak was saying, we took there's original music, and then we took some of the ideas that were already in the film,
Okay.
and kind of adapted them, some more concretely than others. I mean, sometimes it's just an abstract notion of it, and then there's even, we even sort of did a thing where we took the sound of the film and
Right.
recreated just the sort of degradation of the actual print of the
Right.
film,
Right.
to
Yeah.
do a kind of sonic thing with that. So it is kind of a almost a sort of reaction to the film itself, because I think that what Shaista is doing is a reaction. It's not like we're showing the film and she's saying a few words and then we're playing music throughout the film. She's reacting to the film and creating a parallel narrative, if you want, to the film, and then using the film to interact with her narrative. And Isak and I are doing that with the music. We're kind of looking
Yeah.
at what the narrative and what we can take from the film to create a kind of parallel process to the film, which is something I think that's partially why we're working well together. I mean, that's one of the reasons, but that's something that I prefer too. I prefer not to kind of just do something that locks necessarily, step by step with a material, but to create something that works parallel to it and interacts with it. So, and the
Yeah.
film's very evocative in that way. It's a film that, it's very psychedelic in that
Mm.
respect. It kind of, leads to a lot of different possibilities.
So it's not just your music is not just there to enhance the emotions and then to mimic what's going on screen and make some action music to mimic the action. It's more about
No.
commentary. It's more about what you feel about it and what you want to convey as a as your own view of what's happening there and the links that we can make with our own society. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yes, and this piece brings up some really, really important questions about how certain iconic images of Afghanistan have been used in the media, and that also leads to some questions about how we're used on stage. I mean, I know Sam is really not an artist who's just kind of recreating Middle Eastern music for a Western audience. I think that the discussion goes a lot deeper. It's a much it's a much more serious confrontation than simply recycling music from another culture for Western entertainment.
Yeah. And this confrontation, is it coming a lot from you, Shaista? You'll be narrating
The movie, as I said, like it's kind of it's fictional and it's documentary. There's not a lot of dialogue, so you're not having scenes where it's like two-handers, three-handers. It's like watching her, interact with the landscape, interact with the city.
Right.
The dialogue is supremely minimal in the film.
Okay, so you've got space to
Yes.
yeah.
So it's kind of, again, just thinking about, the great privilege of being able to look at this film and use it as an anchor and as a container for the work that we're doing, which is again exploring what identity politics is, what nationalism is, what does it mean to hold on tight to cultural identities, supremely minimal and what we know of it when it's only 250 years old at certain points, right? Like new forms of government, new forms of state. So what kind of history do we attach ourselves to? What kind of history do we tend to? What kind of history do we continue to maintain is some of the questions that I'm looking at. But it is confrontational because, there's different types of characters that come out, right? There's a person that's more of perhaps a sardonic critic, of the system and being asked to tell stories in a particular way. There's another person that may emerge who's like the storyteller that has been given this kind of position to narrate a story very beautifully and so eloquently, right? And then there's also another kind of viewpoint as well, is like, what does it mean when you see a young brown woman being on stage and being able to enact rage or anger, or to really kind of look through the more the darkness that emerges from cultural politics and cultural emotions that come with coming from a certain identity of suffering or trauma. So it's kind of having this anchor, having this container of this film, and working with everyone to kind of allow the audience to have more of these like bold conversations in terms of whose history do we tend to and whose history do we maintain, and the responsibility of that, whether you're on the land or off the land, living as someone in displacement or exile. I hope that gives you some insight into it. Yeah.
And how significant is this for you, to do this and to see this movie and to see all those promises that were not met? How do you feel about that? About your, the country of your ancestors?
I think I have a lot of great love and respect and appreciation for my upbringing and my culture and my language. In terms of significance, I feel it's significant to work with everyone in this room, specifically with Isak and Sam, to be able to construct a show and be able to work with artists that have a significant amount of experience and knowledge, and being able to work in such a way that you feel respected, and there is not a hierarchy of power, but more like a space where there can be an equal emergence of thought and sharing about these viewpoints. So it's specific. It's to me, it's very specific because I'm Afghan. I'm an artist. I talk about these things quite a lot, but it's been a very interesting process to kind of talk about our own cultural upbringings and look at the similarities and the differences, and figure out a way how to integrate that, without universalizing things and flattening things, but and having the space to work with such experienced people to kind of bring that to light. And also, we work in such different mediums, right? I work with text and performance and with objects, and Isak and Sam, work with these concept and music and arrangement. So it's, in terms of significance, it's been, I think, the most important project that I've worked on in my career the last 16 years. So it'll be a great opportunity to actually be able to mount it for this one day, see what the reception is, come away with some feedback, and kind of think about how else and where else is it important to kind of show this kind of work where this dialogue can be facilitated.
Well, I will be there, and I hope many people are too, because it's a wonderful idea, and it looks very promising. Thank you very much, Shaista Latif, Sam Shalabi, and Isak Goldschneider for this interview, and looking forward to it. I repeat myself, but it's important to say it again. It's next Wednesday, March 13th, here in Montreal at La Chapelle Scène Contemporaine. That's it. And it's part of Le Vivier, Semaine du Neuf. This is a festival of contemporary creation, and it's part of it. So thank you very much again, and huge success.
Thank you.
With this beautiful idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Frederick.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.